Turning to a wrap of your top stories of the day.
Good Monday morning, Richard Avane here in Statesville, where the police department has been working overtime to try to discover who's responsible for two shootings that left two men dead. Police say they have one person, the suspect has been named, that for a shooting that happened Saturday afternoon at a house near Deaton Street. They say they want this man, Austin Tykin Kimby Morrison. They also say that that shooting is not related to another one on Allison Street, but in both of these incidents, they're asking for the public to step forth if you have any information.
And to take a look, you may notice this on your drive into work this morning. Wells Fargo just installed a new sign on its Uptown building. It's the second tallest building in Charlotte. However, there will still be several weeks of testing before that sign is officially turned on.
Happening today, the Monroe City Council is going to hold a special meeting to discuss House Bill 3. The measure would make the city's election partisan races instead of nonpartisan. City Council members held a news conference Friday saying they're being left out of the decision. That meeting starts at 8 this morning.
And taking you out on the roads now, we just got this image in from that crash in the Elizabeth neighborhood, and this is in the middle of the intersection at 4th Street and Kings Drive. This is definitely something that you'll want to avoid. Also monitoring this active crash that we have over towards West Charlotte. This is over towards Rhine Road near Chapelton Drive. This one only causing just a few minor delays. Chris?
Thanks a lot, Becca. There it is. Check it out. Yeah. We're back to it, feeling more like July. It's not even technically summer according to the Gregorian calendar. We have 91 to 95 degrees for most of the week, but hey, at least we're cool at 89 today, so that's a nice little change. Still feeling like the mid to the upper 90s.
I appreciate any reference
Cool
to a Gregorian calendar.
89.
It's the calendar we use. It's called Gregorian.
Sure. A reminder, the news doesn't end here. We're live all day with breaking news, weather, and traffic.
That's on WCNC Plus. We're streaming there live. Join us.
You are streaming live right now at 7 a.m. right here on WCNC Plus on a Monday morning. I'm Ben Thompson.
And I'm Lisa Washington. Our team is here to get you started on this morning.
Becca, come on. Becca,
Becca's coming in right now.
I had to change my batteries.
Oh, good.
She did. This is I did see the batteries.
Yes.
And
this is true.
Yes.
We want you to have your battery. That's a good
Absolutely.
Thank
We
you.
want to
That's
be able to
important.
hear you.
That's right.
Our team is all here.
Yep.
Becca's going to have a check of your
Yes,
commute.
I will.
I just think you're being the cool one, casually late to the party.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Fashionably late.
Fashionably late.
That's the word. I didn't casually.
That's
wasn't
the
it?
best.
Maybe that's just how I am.
But we're going to start with you.
We are.
Because it's going to be H-O-T.
And H-U-M-I-D, humid. And we can also throw muggy in there as well. The lowest dew point I have is 69, which isn't good. That means right in the middle of the afternoon, we will see a little dip in how we feel. But I showed you this last half hour over on WCNC. Thanks for joining us on WCNC Plus. I replaced the top word with swampy because that wasn't on the list, but there's a lot of other words to describe it. But I didn't want to say humid. I didn't want to say muggy anymore. We got to up our weather vocabulary, right? With swampy, steamy, soupy, soggy, clammy, stuffy, sticky, saturated, soppy, nasty, no good day. Now, it's going to be an okay day. It's just that pretty much we're now officially into summer. We're expecting our hourly heat index to range from about 91 to 96 degrees, starting at 11 all the way until 6 p.m. and then feels like a nice 82 by 9 p.m. We also have the storm potential with all this heat and humidity. Last time it really felt like this was the last time that we had those flooding rains in Charlotte, and that was on Thursday. So our 3-day heat impact is showing that we are looking at anywhere from a minor to a moderate warm up, and that means that we're just below that 100-degree threshold about how we feel. And then we start to hit those extreme levels, well, not quite, or at least the high or major impacts by about Wednesday heading to Thursday. That just means that it could feel like 100 degrees from time to time because we have this is the setup. Hot, hazy, and humid because that Bermuda high, it's a big old high pressure system that dances out in the Atlantic. It's a big driver and steerer of different tropical systems on and off throughout the season. But this time of year is usually a little bit closer to the United States, and that's driving in extra moisture. More moisture means a higher heat index. Also, more moisture means a better chance for flash flooding. So at midnight is when this flash flood watch officially expires for Watauga and Ashe County because that's covered by Blacksburg, Virginia. Meanwhile, other offices like Raleigh cover parts of our viewing areas such as Stanley, Anson, and Richmond County. All these areas in green have a chance for up to 2 inches plus of rain in a short period of time. That'll lead to some flash flooding just as we saw last week. Even though we don't see a lot of shading here, I'm not going to discount that really either side of the I-77 corridor to the east, all of us will have a chance for that flash flood threat. And the main reason why is we have everything lining up. Really, a severe weather chance or a flood chance is all about things stacking up on one another. One, we have saturated soil from on and off heavy storms over the last several days. Two, you have fronts and troughs. These drive up the heat and humidity. And then number 3 is, I already spoiled it, heat and humidity. So if you mix all those together, you have a chance for what's called training storms or slow-moving storms one after another. Today, I think you're going to have faster movement just because that front at least is moving some, but not too much. But check it out. It's right around 2 o'clock that we see signs of storms developing. From 2 to 5, they start to get to around the I-77 corridor. Charlotte, realistically, I think the 485 loop, which is 67 miles of road, so it's a big difference from north to south, could potentially see maybe an isolated shower as early as 3 o'clock, but a better chance really after 5 to 7 o'clock. And you see one after another in some locations. That's where you might have a flood potential. So I would not be surprised if we have a couple flash flood warnings, especially areas off towards the east where things look to be a little bit more numerous. Here's our futurecast rainfall for today. Most of us seeing less than an inch. That's the majority. But then some areas see about 1 to 2 inches. And then the extreme cases, those flash flood warnings, would be potentially over 2 inches in a short period of time. So I think it's a very isolated threat, but it's still a threat. If you look at just the height of the bars, you can see that today stands out. This evening stands out for higher rain chances, and we do that again Thursday into Thursday evening. But plain and simple, I think most late afternoon to evening hours, that's where most of this activity happens, and that's the typical pattern heading into summer because, boys, it feels like summer because that 7-day forecast, we have 89 degrees for today, and then after that, the lower to the mid-90s, 95 on Sunday. Rain chances also start to become less and less as we work our way through the week, so just get ready for a hot one. Feeling more like July, to say the least, even though we're not technically even to the official start of astronomical summer. summer. Let's head over to Becca to see how our traffic is faring on this already warm morning.
We're enjoying the coolest part of the day out there for sure as we take a live look outside from one of the busy intersections at I-77 and I-85. Both intersections right now, although busy, crash and incident free. So we'll certainly take that on this early Monday morning. But we do have a couple of problem spots out there. This new crash just popped up on the board, and this is on the intersection of Little Rock Road at Tuckasegee. In addition, this crash in the Elizabeth neighborhood still causing delays in all directions. And this is at that intersection of 4th Street at Kings Drive. Definitely something that you'll want to avoid as there's still lots of emergency vehicles in and around that area. I want to take you up to Boone. This is over towards Watauga County. Arnett Hollow Road, that's going to be closed just past Baird's Creek Road to replace a large culvert that was damaged from Hurricane Helene. This is going to be closed starting 8 a.m. this morning and will reopen by 5 p.m. today. Also do have a construction happening over towards East Charlotte. This is going to close northbound Sharon Amity Road between Central Ave and Laurel Lake. This is going to be a daily closure from 9 a.m. through 4 p.m. this afternoon, all the way through June 30th.
We continue to follow breaking news this morning out of South Charlotte, where police are investigating an overnight shooting. It happened on Montfort Drive, just off Woodlawn Road. We know one person was taken to the hospital, but is expected to be okay. No word yet on what led up to the shooting or if police have any suspects in custody. The Statesville community on edge this morning after 2 deadly shootings there over the weekend.
WCNC Charlotte's Richard Devane is live for us this morning. And Richard, police have identified a suspect in one of those shootings.
That's correct. They're still looking for that suspect, and they say that both of these cases are still very much still in the investigative process. Now let's take a look at the person that you just mentioned, Lisa. This is the man that police say they want you to take a look at. If you see him, they want a call from you. His name is Austin Takem Kimby, as he's known, Morrison. Police say he is wanted for a murder charge. This from an incident that happened Saturday afternoon at this house near Deaton Street and Abernathy Ball Field. Police say when they arrived after a 911 call, they found 33-year-old Timmy Jerice Moore suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to Iredell Memorial Hospital, but he died there. Detectives say this shooting is not related to another incident, which also happened over the weekend. That one occurred early Saturday morning on East Allison Street. Police say someone shot and killed 25-year-old D'Angelo Barker. Police found him shot in the chest. They found him in the street. He died early about 5:35 Saturday morning. Police say that this time they want anyone with information about either of these incidents to give police a call. They say these are still 2 active investigations, 2 murder suspects out there, or homicide suspects out there at large. And they say if anyone has any information, give them a call. Guys?
Richard, you mentioned one of the victims. Do we know anything more about these victims?
Yeah, we do know a little bit about him. We do know that the first victim, the one who they actually have a suspect, incidentally, back in 2019, he was on that same street and near that same house when he and both his brother were shot. He survived. His brother died. The 2 men who were convicted of that crime, arrested and convicted of that crime, both of them went to jail. They were sentenced to anywhere from 12 to 15 years in prison. Now, as far as the other person, we do know that police say that they know who he is, the victim. They say they send their regards out to his family, hoping that they'll find out more information about the person who killed him as well. But they say the public has a lot of information out there. There's somebody who knows a lot more, and they can give police some information that will lead to suspects and ultimately arrests in both of these crimes.
All right, Richard Devane reporting live for us there in Statesville. Richard, thank you.
7:09 now, and just hours ago, we learned the man accused of shooting 2 Democratic lawmakers and their spouses in Minnesota is now in custody.
NBC's Jay Gray has the latest from St. Paul this morning.
After more than 40 hours on the run, tactical teams close in, capturing Vance Belter overnight.
There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history.
Federal, state, and local agencies searching for the man they say murdered State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and in a separate attack, severely injuring State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Bullet holes from that shooting visible through their front door. The break in the case came Sunday afternoon. Officers locating an abandoned car Belter is suspected of using after the attacks in a rural area about 50 miles southwest of Minneapolis and just minutes from his home. Then, after a tip from a resident, honing in, tracking, and surrounding Belter.
The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time. There was no use of force by any member of law enforcement.
Agents say Belter was armed when he was taken into custody. A criminal complaint unsealed after his arrest shows police found at least 3 AK-47 rifles, a 9mm pistol, and a kill list in his car, a ballistic vest, mask, and police-style badge on the ground outside the vehicle. Evidence, and what police stress, is still an open and active investigation.
Now begins the hard work of looking at what the motive is, looking at putting this case together.
As the Twin Cities struggle with overwhelming loss. Jay Gray, NBC News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
7:11 here on WCNC Plus now, and we are also working to get more details this morning on a deadly shooting in East Charlotte. It happened Saturday night on Magnolia Drive near Eastway. One person was killed. We reached out to CMPD for more information about a suspect. Investigators encouraging anybody with information to come forward.
This morning, authorities are reminding people to be safe on the water this summer as they investigate 2 drownings over the weekend. The first happened at Lake Norman. Crews responded Saturday night, but they had to call off that search because of the weather. They eventually pulled a body from the water Sunday morning. No word yet on the victim or why they went under. Then in Kings Mountain, another person drowned at Moss Lake. Investigators identified that victim as 46-year-old William Korn of Lattimore. That's just outside Shelby. The report came in just before 5 Saturday afternoon, and crews pulled his body from the water about an hour later. Kings Mountain police are still investigating what led up to his death.
You're headed to Lake Norman this week. Listen up. There is a no swimming advisory for parts of the lake right now after officials found toxic algae in one of the coves. It's near Torrance Chapel Road in Cornelius. While most algae blooms are not harmful, some species like this one can produce toxins linked to several severe illnesses. So what happens if you come into contact with it? Well, thoroughly wash off and then seek medical care if you, a family member, or even a pet feels sick.
Tomorrow marks 10 years since the Charleston church shooting. On June 17, 2015, a white supremacist opened fire during Bible study at Mother Emanuel AME Church, killing 9 black worshipers.
Charlotte City Councilman member Malcolm Graham's sister, one of those victims. He shared his thoughts inside our live Impact news stream right here on WCNC Plus.
I kept busy doing the work, being an advocate for not only her, but for a race of people, right? Because Cynthia would have said, although I died that night and 9 others died with me, 8 others died with me, the attack really was against a race of people, not just me and Reverend Pinckney, Sharonda Singleton. It was anyone who happened to be there and who happened to be black. So it didn't matter who they were, what their backgrounds were. The only thing that mattered that night was that they were there and that they were black. Dr. King said that when he gave the eulogy at the 16th Avenue Baptist Church, where 4 little girls were killed in a bombing, he said, pay little attention to the killer and more attention to the system that produced the killer. And so I use all that time is to try to work in my city council work, or my past life as a state senator or congressional candidate, is to try to fix systems so that everyone can feel that they're playing and working from an equal perspective.
More interviews like that, of course, always streaming right here on WCNC Plus. Happening today, Union County will hold their first Board of Commissioners meeting. They're scheduled to adopt the 2026 budget as well as cover plans for juvenile crime prevention funding. It starts at 6 o'clock tonight. And looking ahead to tomorrow, Gastonia city leaders set to vote on their budget. Officials plan to spend more than $300 million without raising property taxes. That'll keep it steady at 47 cents per $100 of value, which is the lowest it's been in 20 years. However, the budget does include a 5% increase in water and sewer rates. That's about $4.28 per month on average.
Cleanup is underway this morning after Plaza Midwood's Juneteenth celebration this weekend. The Juneteenth Festival of the Carolinas wrapped up yesterday with a gospel fest and closing ceremony. Organizers say this festival was about celebrating history and bringing the community together.
We're not only just celebrating African American history, that we're celebrating a part of American history as a whole. And it means, to me, unity in the community, peace, and celebrating freedom mentally, spiritually, and physically, and being able to come together and celebrate as a community.
This is the 28th year of the festival. And don't forget, the actual Juneteenth holiday is this Thursday. One major celebration is happening in Gastonia. You can enjoy food trucks, live music, and history. And the night ends with fireworks. Again, that's this Thursday from 6 to 10 p.m. All right, let's check in with Chris now for an update on our hot forecast.
Hot is going to be the norm as we are officially embarking into summer. We're officially calling it summer just before 11 o'clock on Friday. So this weekend will be the first summer weekend, first true one. Of course, here in the meteorological world, we already started keeping our summertime records for the month of June. And our peak heat index so far is only 95 degrees. We're going to break down how hot you typically feel for the number of hours in a year. And I'll explain that a little bit more over the next 30 minutes. But our peak heat index this week, 101 degrees. 93 is the high on Wednesday. So the moisture is really having a bigger factor. Of course, the higher this number is and then the higher the moisture content, that's where we're going to see a big difference. But I was showing you this earlier, so I wanted to explain this a little bit more. We have a little extra time here on WCNC Plus. You can see a lot more of these maps here. This is literally called, one of our words that we use here a lot, heat impacts. And it's either a minor, moderate, major, or extreme level. Whenever you see this pink, and you're not going to see it here over the next 6 days, this is a product that goes days 1 through 6. It's technically a day 7, but we kind of just disregard that one. Well, this is going to show anything that's maybe 105 to 110. That would be extreme. Now, of course, different parts of the country have different thresholds, but anytime it's feeling like 105 plus, that's where really it starts to become more of an extreme danger. But still, a major impact is when you're feeling like 100 degrees plus, and that's what this is implying. I think on Wednesday and Thursday, that's your best chance of feeling 100 plus, and then the rest of the week, hey, close enough, still feeling like the upper 90s, so more of that air you can wear. Here's Thursday, as I mentioned, it's the eastern side of the state that's in the red, much higher impacts there, and then eventually, back to a minor threat on Friday. The reason why it's actually going to feel a whole lot better is that moisture is going to be on the way down thereafter, and then heading into your Saturday, things don't really change too much. So what I'm really simplistically saying is it's going to feel the hottest on Wednesday and Thursday, and that's going to be the big difference maker. As far as our rainfall chances go, I was showing you this earlier that we have a couple of spikes, one on Monday and one on Thursday, and a lot of this is all driven on the moisture content and whatever front is nearby. Our atmospheric moisture really showing that it is surging over the next few days, not really especially like exceeding anything. Things actually stay pretty consistent for our extended dew points. So check this out. Our extended dew point forecast doesn't really move too much. Where most of my heat indices I'm factoring anywhere from 70 to 71. That's just plain old muggy, or all the other words like swampy and soupy as I described earlier. But then, hey, only the upper 60s, so a slight change heading in the weekend. We don't have any really big time relief that I'm really going to be pointing out in the near term. But I want to show you the extended forecast to show that our high temperatures are actually going to spike on Sunday and Monday, and then they come back to the lower 90s. And I think pretty much going forward, that's where we're going to be for the extended future, because, hey, we're almost at the end of July at that point, and that's pretty much what we do. We are anywhere from 90 to 95, some days in the 80s if there's more cloud cover. Also, our lows are going to be more typically in the lower 70s. So just expect this kind of like an earlier preview to the next month, or the dog days of summer, which actually officially starts on July 3rd until August 11th. There's actually a time frame. As far as our precipitation chances, and this will be the last graphic I show you until we give another look at that 7-day forecast here in a few minutes, 20 to 30% chance for rain going forward. That's just typical summertime stuff. You see that 20% popping up all the time. Today, I don't have this on the map, is the only one that's into that scattered to even near likelihood that we're going to have rain. So today's the day you want to have the umbrella, especially late day heading into the evening. We'll revisit this again at the top of the next half hour, but first we have to revisit Becca Birdsall to see how our morning commute's looking.
Getting busier out there as we take a picture of this crash that I am monitoring, and this is over towards South Charlotte. This is impacting those outbound, basically northbound lanes of Tryon Street at Sugar Creek Road. And this is currently blocking one lane of traffic on that right-hand side there. In addition, in Elizabeth, still tracking this disabled vehicle blocking that center lane of traffic over towards that 18-wheeler. This is on westbound Charlottetown Avenue at Elizabeth Avenue. And then just down the road from that, still have this active crash causing delays in all direction at the intersection of 4th Street at Kings Drive. Otherwise, starting to see lots of color pop on the traffic map in the usual spots. That is from Gastonia, I-85 northbound as you head over towards Mecklenburg County. Also 77 north coming from South Charlotte. Also just a little bit slow out there. Let's look outside just south of Uptown before you hit the John Belk. That is I-77 at West Boulevard. Those northbound lanes just a little bit slow out there. Looking a little bit better over towards York County. This is I-77 over towards Gold Hill Road. No issues there. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Becca. 7:21 now. Check this out. The Uptown skyline looking a little different this morning after crews officially installed a new sign on top of the Wells Fargo building. Helicopters were used to lift the large letters to the top of the former Duke Energy building, which is also the second tallest building in the Queen City. Each letter is about 14 feet tall and, of course, lights up. Wells Fargo says there will be several weeks of testing before the sign is officially turned on.
Very controversial.
Things are going to look different.
Listen, Wells Fargo owns the building. They can do what
they
want.
please.
City leaders signed off on it. I think for a lot of people, it's the retroactively adding, like they did at the Truist building too.
Yes.
I think if a building goes up and it already has it, it's not
Then
so
you
much
do
of a
it.
shock. It's afterwards. But
And it's great that Charlotte has, the clean kind of skyline with not so much signage, but it's changing.
There you go. 7:21 right now. In Alabama, a new initiative is making headlines by bringing medical and mental health services to those who really need it most. A doctor and his team at a hospital in Montgomery are hitting the streets to provide care to folks who are homeless. Those without a home face significant barriers, as you can imagine, to getting help, especially when it comes to mental health resources. Officials with the program say part of the solving this crisis is meeting those individuals where they are.
It's hard for them just to get organized to make it into the doctor. So if we can come directly to them and treat those conditions, then their quality of life improves significantly.
As part of that street psychiatry program, the team carries a mobile clinic backpack which holds everything from socks to even things like Narcan. In just 6 months, the program's launch, officials say they've seen a huge improvement in the health and well-being of those folks.
In a time where it's becoming increasingly difficult for college grads to land that first job, 2 Yale students are working to change the way that young professionals network. They're going to use an AI-powered social network to create new connections all over text. That network is called Series. Now, you might be thinking students at a prestigious college launching a social network sounds familiar, but the creators are quick to point out this network is nothing like Facebook.
Series is an AI social network that uses AI friends to operate via iMessage to help you connect with the right people at the right time. And we essentially are building what we call the first AI social network. They seem to essentially function to help you meet the right people for your wants and needs, just like a friend would in real life.
Series currently has 10,000 active users and has raised enough money to expand the network even more. The pair hopes their platform can help remove barriers and bias in the networking space for others. We're learning more and more about the power of AI.
I know.
You know, I think was inherently skeptical about anything AI probably like 2 years ago.
For sure.
And the more I've used it, the more I realize it's actually
We've had discussion about
really
that.
good.
Yes.
You know,
It's very
I mean,
useful.
like it's a chat GPT is really helpful, whether it's finances or planning a trip or whether it's, you know, something in the newsroom or,
Yes.
you know, Claude's another one, Perplexity is another one.
Correct.
And they keep coming out with new things.
Yeah.
And they keep getting, it keeps getting smarter, like it's
The
teaching
limit does
itself.
not exist. I'm excited
Yeah.
to see in the next couple of years.
And it's not to say, I mean, we fully realize that it comes with serious downsides.
Yes.
Yeah,
As far as-
double check, verify everything
as far
for
as
sure.
that sort of thing, as far as possible jobs and things like we realize that, but
it can be a helpful tool.
Yeah, and what I've really learned so much is it's how you ask it questions. There is actually an art to asking it questions, the more details,
The prompts, yes.
and keeping it within a narrow lane. If not, it'll go somewhere else. It'll go to a different continent on you.
Left field.
You gotta keep it on a leash.
Yeah, that's the
Short
best way to put it.
leash,
Yeah.
Good, Becca.
All right, 7:25 right now. Live pictures over Uptown. Does it look like that really, or is that the camera?
No, that's what it looks.
Oh. Not very nice. Yeah, very dark. Cloudy, maybe?
Yeah, it'll get better.
You're the weather guy, not me. I don't know. All right, Chris standing by. He has more on that forecast. Becca has to check out your Monday morning commute, and then we're back with the headlines at 7:30 right here on WCNC Plus.
Just letting you know, it might look cloudy for some, but this is not how it's going to look all day long. Whoa, look at that. Attacked by that giant bug. We have a beautiful blue sky over here in Dallas, though. We have 89 degrees around Charlotte, 85 around Hickory. Today's going to be a nice mix of cloud and sunshine, but we'll have more clouds at the end of the day as some storms starting to bubble up. Some of us under a flood watch, but that means pretty much everyone either side of the I-77 corridor and areas east have a good chance for training storms. That's one storm after another where you could have a flooding potential, and that's especially late afternoon heading into the evening. Our extended forecast, 7-day forecast, we have 89 is a cool spot. Still feeling like the mid to the upper 90s, feeling close to 100 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday. After that, looks like the hot spot, 95 on Sunday. Becca, what's going on?
And outside right now, taking you over towards that Iredell, Mecklenburg County line. This is I-77 at Griffith Street. Gorgeous shot of the lake there and traffic moving along nicely. Do want to let you know of a couple of problem spots out there, though, in terms of crashes. This one is impacting northbound Tryon Street at Sugar Creek Road. Currently one lane of traffic blocked off, and probably the biggest crash at the moment is going to be this one over towards the Elizabeth neighborhood. This is at the intersection of 4th Street at Kings Drive. It's causing delays in all directions. In addition, South Tryon Street at Skipwith Place, also dealing with a crash there, causing some slowdowns.
Good Monday morning. Thanks for joining us here, streaming live on WCNC Plus at 7:30. I'm Ben Thompson.
And I'm Lisa Washington. We'll get to a check of your morning commute as well as your forecast in just a few moments. But first, we start with some sad news out of Buncombe County this morning, where a volunteer firefighter was killed over the weekend. It happened on Saturday during a training exercise in Montreat. A firefighter with the Riceville Volunteer Fire Department was killed in an ATV crash. 2 others were also hurt. It's not clear yet what caused that crash. Happening today, the murder trial for Emmanuel Bedford is set to get underway. He's accused of kidnapping and killing his ex-girlfriend, Deidre Reed, back in 2021. Investigators say she took him to the bus station and was never seen again. Bedford's trial was originally set to begin back in April, but it was delayed because not enough jurors showed up. He's pleaded not guilty.
Happening today, Union County leaders are going to discuss how to spend money aimed at keeping kids out of the criminal justice system. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards live with us here. She's going to break down the plan and how it could impact a lot of families right there in Union County. Destiny?
Yeah, today county commissioners are reviewing a plan that is really focused on early intervention. It's rooted in local data and guided by the Union County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Now, the council is requesting more than $476,000 in state funding to support local programs that serve at-risk youth and court-involved youth. A new risk assessment report included in the plan shows that more than half of these kids were classified as moderate or high risk for reoffending, and 71% had been suspended from school, a rate higher than the state average. The plan also calls out priority issues like weapon possession, early substance use, even before age 12, and gang involvement. The Juvenile Crime Prevention Council chair explained to us why this funding is so critical year after year.
These programs give opportunity for our young people within Union County Public Schools to, number one, come in by making mistakes, but leaving by understanding that their mistakes did not define them.
The council wants to fund programs that can address these root causes, including DASH counseling, teen court, parenting support, and a workforce readiness program called Kids at Work. And Kirkpatrick says the county has a history of supporting these programs when it comes before the county commissioners. And they say that if this passes, this will secure funding going into the next fiscal year.
Now, Destiny, you mentioned that this plan focuses on prevention, but what are some of the challenges that Union County is facing in delivering the services?
Yeah, there's several of them. In this plan, transportation is a major barrier that they lay out. Basically, many youth cannot plainly just get to these programs. Another one is there's been a drop in referrals from court counselors into these programs, partly due to staffing shortages and then limited public awareness. So there's a lot of families that simply don't know that these services exist. So this plan basically is something that was all the data that's included in it was aggregated from last fiscal year. It was about 182 at-risk or youth that came through the court system that were assessed, and court counselors came up with this information at where those risk factors lie, as well as what gaps there are, and all of this came together for them to present before the county commissioners today.
All right, Destiny Richards, thanks so much for that report, Destiny.
7:30 Corey now here on WCNC Plus. We're following breaking news in Northwest Charlotte, where one person is in serious condition after an early morning shooting. Take a look. This is what happened. It was on Ellie Lane. As you can see here, that's right near Freedom Drive and I-85. We have reached out to CMPD and we're still working to learn more.
All right, 7:34. Now let's check in with Chris to find out more about our forecast for this Monday. In fact, all for this week, it's going to be really hot and humid.
Yeah, we have turned on the summertime heat. We're officially calling it the summer solstice right at the end of our Friday. So that means this weekend is the first true summer weekend. However, it feels like summer already. It did over this past weekend for the last spring weekend. Here's your hour-by-hour heat index for today, and I'm going to show you the difference for tomorrow. It's not a big change. Feeling like I think a peak of right around around about 2 to 3 o'clock. It's also at this point that sometimes you can drop the dew points. That's a good measure about how much moisture is in the air. Here's tomorrow's chart. It's only a difference of 98 degrees for the peak right around 2 p.m., but I broke it down a little bit further. I actually did these ones by hand. So to calculate the heat index, it's an extremely complicated formula, but you can put in the dew point, you can put in the temperature, and then you can find a good calculation. Where I think that for our maxes that we're going to see around the Charlotte area, I think you have a max of 97. That's still cautionary today. 99 tomorrow, but it's really only on Wednesday and Thursday that I have a heat index right around 100 degrees. And as I teased earlier, coming up, I'm going to show you how many hours per year Charlotte on average averages over 100 degrees. It's not as many as you actually think. Because usually when you have a heat index of 101, which I'm forecasting for Wednesday, I think that at tops might be up to an hour and really nothing past that point. 71 is the magic number for our dew points. I think it's really anywhere from 70 to 72. This is just giving you data you don't need. Just focus in on this one word, muggy. It's going to feel muggy across the board. And then you can see hour by hour through today is a little drop by 2 p.m., but it's not too much. We just really have a consistent level of moisture going forward. With the amount of moisture, with fronts nearby, we actually have an elevated flood watch for today. Now, it's mainly areas north and east of Charlotte. So our biggest National Weather Service office, and that's Greenville, Spartanburg, right around here. They're not calling for a flood watch as of yet, but I think this could be expanded for maybe a couple of those counties. And our next 24 hours is the highest chance for any widespread rain to even just scatter rain. After that, it gets less and less, and I'll show you that in one moment. But as long as you have a front nearby, that's going to be enough to push things up. And then we had a little trough nearby last Thursday where we had that epic flooding, and some of us were actually put under a considerable flash flood warning. That was a similar setup to what we have today. So just saying that those things are starting to line up. It was a big old trough firing that up. And we also hit 90 degrees that day, pretty close to what we're going to do today as well. Our rainfall chances after today, isolated. Doesn't mean you're still not going to get a heavier downpour here and there. There's just less on the map. And you can see our rainfall chances. The only one that's really looking at the scatter potential is today. The rest of the week, pretty isolated. So let's break down on our future cast. It's the magic hour about 1 to 2 o'clock. We see our first signs of storms. This, I think, really can start to become more widespread by the end of the afternoon, between about 3 and 5. I think Charlotte's best window to first see storms is really 5 to 8 o'clock as they're slowly pushing through the area. Heaviest rain looks to be well east and the longest lasting right around Stanley County, so a good reason to be under that flash flood watch. And then you have this rain starting to wind down as we work our way through the evening. And real quick, I'm just going to get to our next rain chance. Check it out. You have a few isolated to scattered thunderstorms during tomorrow afternoon, but not nearly the coverage that we have today. Coming up, I'm going to have that Guy Roofing 70 forecast, also breaking down some heat stats for you. But first, let's check over with Becca to see how things are looking for your morning commute.
It's rush hour traffic across the Queen City as we take a live look outside. This is I-85 at Sugar Creek Road. Of course, a busy spot this morning, but both the north and southbound lanes looking good. No incidents report on the major interstates or highways at this point, so we're off to a pretty good start. Want to get those drive times right now? Matthews to Uptown up to around 23 minutes. Salisbury has gone up to around 55, Waxhaw 39, and Belmont still at 24 minutes. Lots of red, especially over towards Gastonia. I-85 northbound. Also, as you make your way over towards Huntersville, 77 northbound, also running just a little bit slow there. Got a couple of new incidents out there, including this one. This is going to be on inbound, I believe that's Graham Street at 6th Street. Currently one lane of traffic blocked off, and it does appear that the truck has run over and potentially hit that building over there. So something that we'll continue to monitor. In addition, this new crash just popped up. This is northbound Rama Road at Monroe Road. Currently that left lane of traffic blocked off. And this big crash that I've been monitoring for probably the past 30 minutes, 4th Street at Kings Drive. We do have an update. The vehicles have been cleared, but ongoing traffic signal repairs will require intermittent lane closures. Again, that will likely continue through the late morning hours.
Thanks, Becca. A former Charlotte Douglas Enterprise employee is facing charges this morning after he allegedly threatened co-workers with a gun. It happened just days after he was fired. 26-year-old Isaiah Williams allegedly flashed the gun and said he was, quote, ready for the supervisor who had fired him. That supervisor wasn't there at the time and no one was hurt. Williams took off before police arrived, but officers later arrested him.
Uptown Charlotte should be back to normal this morning after thousands packed the streets this weekend for the No Kings protest. It was just one of several protests across our area and across the country. Many at the protest say their silence has cost too much for too long. And now They're calling for a change, not just in policy, but also in leadership.
No one is saying that we shouldn't have strong borders and that we shouldn't get criminals out, but they're taking U.S. citizens. They're taking people legally allowed to be here.
The majority of people are not happy with the policies of the Trump administration and his push towards authoritarianism.
I think more and more people are going to continue to mobilize.
On the same day, the president had a military parade in D.C. to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. Close to 7,000 men and women in uniform marched through the center of Washington as fighter jets and choppers flew overhead.
Right now, the Trump administration is pausing all immigration arrests at farms, restaurants, and hotels. The move comes after farmers and business owners express concern about losing workers. This comes after a big increase in immigration enforcement, with plans to make 3,000 arrests per day. President Trump is in Canada this morning as some world leaders are set to meet this week for the G7 summit.
The gathering puts the president in the international spotlight, but could be shadowed by political unrest at home and escalating tensions abroad. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest now from Washington.
President Trump turning to the world stage today in Canada at the Group of Seven summit of top allies amid mounting concerns over a new round of attacks between Israel and Iran. President Trump hoping for a deal to de-escalate.
Sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
While promising to keep supporting Israel's defense.
American pilots are shooting down drones that are headed towards Israel.
Iran has threatened to strike American military targets if the U.S. continues that assistance to Israel. Lawmakers sounding off.
The United States has troops, facilities, and civilians in the region. Do not attack them. That is our red line. If you go there, all bets are off.
Many defending Israel's goal of destroying Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon, while still calling to prioritize diplomacy.
Bring the two sides together, as well as protecting U.S. personnel.
U.S. embassy offices in Israel are closed today. That, as a U.S. official tells NBC News, President Trump rejected a recent proposal from Israel to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. The growing conflict expected to be a central topic among the G7 allies gathering in Canada, while here at home, boiling domestic divisions on display at weekend protests across the country against Trump administration policies, timed to counter the military parade in Washington, marking the Army's 250th anniversary that coincided with the president's 79th birthday. Tariffs and trade, another key focus at the G7 summit, with President Trump suggesting there could be announcements about a few new trade deals, while insisting world leaders should agree to conditions set by his administration. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
A somber birthday celebration held over the weekend for an Atlanta mother declared brain dead but still being kept alive on life support. Adrienne Smith, now 31, has been on life support since February because she is pregnant. Smith's family were told by doctors that under Georgia's heartbeat law, they have to keep her on life support until she delivers that baby. However, that family believes decisions like this should be left up to them. Dozens showed up to a reproductive rights rally yesterday to speak out on Smith's behalf and pray for that family.
Happening today, the Monroe City Council will hold a special meeting to discuss House Bill 3. That measure would make the city's elections partisan races instead of nonpartisan. City council members held a news conference on Friday saying they are being left out of this decision.
If we're going to make those kinds of changes in elections, we have other municipalities that have nonpartisan elections. So if the goal is to get everyone to a partisan election, then do everyone at the same time, let everyone communicate about it and everyone learn about it. But let's not cherry pick municipalities. That's not okay.
That meeting starts in about 15 minutes at 8 this morning.
7:24 right now on WCNC Plus. Check this out. The largest great white shark ever tagged in the North Atlantic tracked off North Carolina's coast. Contender, a whopping 14 feet, nearly 1,700 pounds. He was last pinged near Cape Hatteras on June 7th. Researchers say he's traveled nearly 1,900 miles since being tagged in January. Woo. I'm sure he's long gone by now if you're headed to the coast. We are expecting a sizzling start to the summer with temperatures touching the 90s pretty much all week.
But it's actually going to feel much hotter due to the heat index. Chris is going to break down some interesting stats for us this morning. Chris.
Well, you know that I'm your stat man. Beep-bop-bop-bada-bump. Love looking into the data that you wouldn't otherwise care to look at, but I'm going to let you know anyway. So there's a lot here. I wouldn't have time to do this on WCNC, but I went through and was able to sort through the data and find out the average amount of hours that we spent at a certain heat index and certain levels. So for instance, 90 degrees, so that could be actual air temperature or how we feel, so much hotter. We've only spent 25 hours so far in 2025 feeling like 90 degrees plus. Well, on a typical summer or a typical year, and this data goes back to 1973, we spent 339 hours feeling like 90 degrees plus. But what's interesting is as you go down the line, it's a lot less than you would think. So only an hour spent at 95 so far. That's our hottest that we felt so far this year. Well, on a typical year, we spent 125 hours feeling like 95 degrees. So yeah, we can get the data down to the hour, sometimes even the minute. But what's interesting is 100 plus doesn't happen too often. Only about a day's worth of hours spent feeling like 100 degrees plus. 2 to 3 hours on average, 105, and it is very rare for us to have a 110 degree heat index. That only happens a handful of times, and at that point we would be under an excessive heat warning or an excessive hot weather warning, as now it is called by the National Weather Service. So went through the data, just wanted to share that with you. It's actually rare for us to feel like 100 degrees for that long, but we could potentially do it for an hour each day. I think on Wednesday and Thursday we're going to be right around the 101 degree point or close enough. And the rest of them feeling like 95 to 99. Today, I think we're just a little bit shy of that. But hey, mid to the upper 90s, though the mid to the upper 90s, still the hottest that we felt so far. So it's this time of the year. Soon, the 7-day that I'm about to show you is what you can expect each and every day through the month of June overall and July especially. But I just want to let you know that usually for the first hot stretch, not to overexert yourself. That's where it can really get to people. Okay, so for the forecast, the National Weather Service mainly will issue one of these and showing the red to the extreme whenever we get into that 100 degree plus heat index. And I think the only days that we have a chance for that is what I just showed you on Wednesday and Thursday, especially on the eastern side of the Carolinas. That's where it's going to be feeling the hottest. But then we start to see some of this yellow move in. It actually feels much better by Friday as a front starts to push through. The reason why we're so warm is because of the setup. It's all about the pieces on the board, because where these highs and lows spin is going to steer the wind direction, or these are steering currents, which is also a big reason why hurricanes move in a certain direction. But this time it's just really showing us what we're going to be feeling like and driving in some of the extra moisture in the near term. So for our 7-day forecast, you can see that 89 is actually the cool spot. After that, you have 91 to 95. Right now, the warmest that we've been so far, 91 degrees. We did that not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. We're going to outdo that big time, multiple days. 93 on Wednesday, 93 on Saturday, and 95 degrees on Sunday. Get used to seeing this. This is pretty much what you see each and every 7-day through July, unless something really weird happens like a tropical system or excessive cloud cover. So get used to it, get ready. But I enjoyed what Becca said earlier. This is March in Texas. I thought that was funny.
You know, it's the air that you can wear, and it can always be worse. Outside right now, looking pretty good on the roadways so far. This is a live look from I-77 at Clanton Road. Traffic has actually been pretty decent on this Monday morning, thanks to it being, of course, summer break across CMS. That is certainly helping out with the traffic out there. Over towards York County, this is a live look from I-77, and also running just a little bit slow, especially as you head inbound into Mecklenburg County, 77 northbound, running into a couple of delays there. Want to take you over to Boone very quickly to let you know of a construction project happening. This is going to close Arnett Hollow Road just after Baird's Creek Road, and this is going to replace a large culvert that was damaged from Hurricane Helene, and that is going to close the road from 8 a.m. this morning and reopen by 5 p.m. this afternoon. Also want to let you know of some construction happening over towards East Charlotte. This is going to close northbound Sharon Amity Road between Central Ave and Laurel Lake. This is going to be a daily closure 9 a.m. through 4 4 p.m. all the way through June 30th. Still have this active crash. This is right in Uptown. This is on southbound Graham Street at 6th Street. It does look like that truck has run into that building there. So one lane of traffic currently blocked off from that, as well as northbound Rama Road at Monroe Road. Still have that left lane of traffic blocked off, and you can see that stretch of delays there from that crash. Drive safe, y'all.
Hi, this is Larry Sprinkle. Time for a Monday trivia. It's all about major highways, but one in particular that's a pretty long highway. Stretches all the way from Chattanooga to Charlotte out to Wilmington. We're talking about U.S. Highway 74, otherwise known as, to some people, to a few people maybe, as Andrew Jackson Highway. It stretches 515 miles from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Wilmington, North Carolina, also known as Andrew Jackson Highway, American Indian Highway, Independence Boulevard, and Wilkinson Boulevard. U.S. Highway 74, that's your Monday trivia. I'm Larry Sprinkle.
Well, school is now out for summer, which means that your kids are probably going to bed much later than they would during the school year. Experts say keeping a consistent schedule, even while the kids are out of class, can be beneficial.
WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg shows us the everyday impact this can have.
With school out for summer, kids may want to turn off their alarm, but pediatric sleep specialist Dr. Chafin Hart says keeping them on a regular schedule during the summer months can have long-term benefits.
Adolescents will sleep in by hours, and it can be important to let them sleep maybe a little more than you would during the school year, but good idea to, again, wake them up at a consistent wake time so that they have sort of some rhythm in their system.
She says the way to getting a good night's rest actually starts in the morning.
If kids can get exercise in the morning when it's cooler outside, that's ideal for multiple reasons. Partly because it's more comfortable to exercise, but also because then their body starts that countdown towards sleep because it realizes that they're awake and today is day.
She says no matter what time you make your summer schedule start and end at, consistency is key.
For circadian rhythm, I think parents keeping the same wake time every day is really important. It doesn't have to be the wake time they had during school. It can be a little later, but if it's consistent, it will help them regulate their circadian rhythm and keep them on some sort of schedule.
Some other key tips: avoid caffeine in the afternoon and screens 1 hour before bedtime. Megan Bragg, WCNC Charlotte.
We've all heard some unique, some would say strange baby names in our lives, but one mom is catching a whole lot of heat for her future little girl's name.
Listen to this. A friend who was invited to the baby shower posted the invitation on Reddit and was shocked to learn that the baby's name was Chernobyl Hope. Now, as many of us know, Chernobyl is the name of the nuclear plant that exploded in a town that's now part of Ukraine back in 1986. That explosion killed dozens of people. It left some lasting impacts on those who lived in and around the area. Many online said if the person is close to the parents, they should have a conversation about changing the baby's name. And while some countries ban certain names, as of now, baby Chernobyl is more than fine in the government's eyes.
At least they have hope.
Does she know?
She must not.
I'm thinking she doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a pretty name.
Maybe she's like just heard the name before and didn't understand.
She's heard Chernobyl.
Or maybe she didn't get like her mom's opinion or a friend's opinion. She just announced it to everyone, and everyone was like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
See, you and I were talking about earlier about whether or not you should
Tell the name of the baby.
You should tell people your baby name.
And what did you say?
I said, no, don't tell people because they don't need to chime in on your name.
How do you feel about that now?
I was wrong.
If you're going this unique, luckily the middle name's not Titanic, the way they were going.
No, that's actually my middle name. Hope.
Oh, I was like,
I thought you were going to say Titanic. I was like,
Becca Titanic.
Becca Titanic Rochelle. Wow. The things you learn on WCNC Plus.
She had it as Chernobyl Hope. And hope.
Yes.
Yeah, there's hope
That's
after
a good
it.
one.
Hope we like, but I think this is a situation where you kind of gotta say, hey, do you know about this?
I mean, people still can't live there, and they can't live there for like I think decades and decades and decades.
Correct.
To come. Like,
The lasting impacts of that.
Yeah, there's a documentary that person needs to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They might be
exactly.
like, oh no.
Okay.
All right, well, we are going to take a quick break, but keep it right here in WCNC Plus. All the things you will learn. We're going to have another update on weather and traffic, yes, but we give you all the things. And then we'll be back with more of the day's top stories at the top of the hour.
It's going to be hot, hot, hot. 89 degrees for the actual air temperature, but how we feel could be as hot as 96, 97 a little bit later on in the afternoon. Today we have a mix of clouds and sunshine, but we also have a good chance for some scattered thunderstorms to end the day. That's why we do have some flash flood watches to the north and east in our viewing area, but all of us will have a chance for some heavy flooding rains today. Here's a look at our futurecast, seeing those storms become a little bit more numerous as we work our way into the late afternoon. I think Charlotte, you could see rain as early as 4 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, even earlier over in Hickory and Lincolnton between about 2 and 4. And these things really start to expand along the I-85 corridor as we are exiting out of our evening commute. So keep that in mind. Our 7-day forecast showing that the 90s take over after that, lower to the mid 90s Tuesday through Sunday. So it looks like we flipped the switch to summer a little bit early. Becca, let's head over to your morning commute.
In the heart of rush hour traffic now, taking a live look outside from York County. This is I-77, and especially over towards Gold Hill Road, you can see a little bit slow as drivers head closer inbound into Mecklenburg County. You can see that reflected currently on the traffic map, so do keep that in mind as you head out that way. Also want to let you know of this. This is that crash on Little Rock Road at Tuckasegee Road, but also still have this disabled vehicle. This is impacting that central lane of westbound Charlottetown Avenue at Elizabeth Avenue, currently blocking one lane of traffic.
Streaming live right now at 8 a.m. here on WCNC Plus. I'm Ben Thompson.
And I'm Lisa Washington. We are on top of breaking news this morning in South Charlotte, where police are investigating an overnight shooting. It happened on Montfort Drive, that's just off Woodlawn Road. We know one person was taken to the hospital, but is expected to be okay. There's no word yet on what led up to that shooting or if any suspects are in custody.
Folks in Statesville on edge this morning after 2 deadly shootings over the weekend.
WCNC Charlotte's Richard DeVade is live for us this morning. And Richard, we know that police have identified a suspect in one of those shootings.
That is correct, Lisa. Good morning to you. Good morning, Ben. Good Monday morning, all. But police say while they've identified one suspect, both of the suspects or both of the people responsible for these incidents are still at large. Now, this is the person that they've identified. This is one suspect in one of those shootings. His name, Austin Tykim Kimby, as he's known, Morrison. Police say he's wanted for that murder charge for this incident that happened Sunday afternoon at this house near Deaton Street in Abernathy Ballfield. battlefield. Police say when they arrived after getting a call of shots fired, they found 33-year-old Timmy Jerice Moore suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was rushed to Iredell Memorial Hospital, but unfortunately he died of his wounds. Detectives say that shooting is not related to another incident, which also happened over the weekend. That one occurred early Saturday morning on East Allison Street. Police say when someone shot and killed 25-year-old D'Angelo Barker. Police found him shot in the chest, laying in the middle of the street. This all happening early Saturday morning around 5:35. He unfortunately died at the scene. Police say that both of these incidents are still under investigation. They have named one suspect, not the other yet. They say their heart and sympathies go out to the families, and they say if anyone has information about these crimes, to please give police a call. We're right here in Statesville. Richard Evane, guys, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Richard, it strikes me these are two families that are struggling right now. What do we know more about these victims?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the first family, the one that happened, the shooting that happened on Deaton Street, that person, his brother, he was in that same street near that same house that we just showed you the video of, where two people came up and shot both he and his brother. That was in 2019. His brother died of his wounds. He lived, he survived that shooting, only to be shot and killed this past weekend. Now, the other person, also, police know who he is and they know the family, and they say that's why it's so important for the community who knows something to please say something to bring those folks responsible to justice.
Richard Evane reporting live for us there in Statesville. Richard, thank you. All right, turning back to your weather impact forecast. Chris, is this technically our first heat wave?
Yes. So the definition of heat wave is complicated because a lot of different National Weather Service offices will have different interpretations, but the most common one is 90 degrees or more for 3 days or more. And that is only the beginning of our forecast. It's also, you can have an exceptional warm up. So say when we average 90 degrees during the middle of summer, if you're talking about like 98 to 100 for multiple days, that would be a different tier of heat wave. So this one for sure, since we should be averaging the mid to the upper 80s, and we're going to be jumping in the lower to the mid 90s, almost a month ahead of schedule. And it's also the first time that we're going to be testing that triple-digit mark for how hot we feel. Our Dallas camera looking the best. Where you saw Richard's shot, you saw a decent amount of blue sky, like this. But then if you look at other shots, it's looking a lot cloudier. So this is a good example of what's going on around the area. You still have this giant bug over here in Monroe, and Monroe's just running like everything's just fine. And that thicker cloud cover is really just a form of a low deck of stratus that is the same way that fog forms. It just didn't reach the surface. So you have a low deck of clouds that eventually will start to erode as that wasp is going to be doing waspy things a little bit later on. 1 mile visibility around Morganton. That's the worst of the fog. So it is quite foggy here up in the mountains and further off towards the west. The rest of us rolling just fine. Just some clouds to deal with today. Mixed cloud and sunshine throughout the afternoon though. And then eventually those clouds could turn darker. And we're talking about our storm potential to close out the afternoon heading into the evening. This really reminds me of Thursday's forecast. I think we're just shifting most of the moisture and some of the worst of the rain a little bit further east. And Thursday, don't recall, it just depends. It was more memorable for some of us. Some of us were alerted on our phone that, oh, there is a flash flood warning. Oh, it's a considerable flash flood warning. You're only notified on your phone if it's considerable or a flash flood emergency. So we saw so much rain south of Uptown because of this setup. It was 90 degrees. It felt like the lower to the mid 90s to the mid 90s, just like today. But then we also had a front and a trough that was draped across the area. So that leads to more rain. And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing through today. By 2 o'clock, I think we see some signs that storms are developing on the board. Any radar app will just show a couple, maybe 2 to 3 storms. Once you get to 4, I think those are going to double. And then we really start to see more scattered to numerous activity to close out the afternoon heading into the evening. As of right now, it looks like Charlotte's best opportunity for storms is between 5 and 8. There's still a slight chance that after 2, anything can pop up. We saw this on that Thursday as well. There was 1 or 2 storms. I think one hit like Concord, Kannapolis, and then there was no rain for 3 hours before we saw the main slot like this at really between 5 and 8. But you notice that this is a little bit more widespread the further east that you go, so we are anticipating that that is going to be a possibility for more flooding rains the further east that you're traveling. So for our 7-day forecast, 89. The cool spot, right? Well, I have a heat index right around 97 degrees. And then once you get to the Wednesday, Thursday time frame, 93 and 92, I think, are going to feel close to about 100 degrees. And I'll show you that graphic in 1 second. And then we're back up to about 95 degrees. Now, those dew points are going to start to come down at that point. Just letting you know that I think it's a little bit more important how we feel than what's actually read on the thermometer. So your actual real feels, I hand calculated these, or at least put them into the calculator that's on the National Weather Service. I think factoring in the dew points where they are, 97's the max today, 99 on Tuesday, and right around 100 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday. This is going to become the norm, people. Once you get to July, it's just always the first round that's the roughest. Well, let's see how a round of traffic is doing with Becca Birdsall. Good to see you this morning, by the way.
Good morning. Hey, want to start with the good news out there. Got a couple of crashes that have cleared, including this one. This one had one lane of traffic blocked off on those northbound Rama Road lanes at Monroe Road. Not something that you'll have to worry about anymore. In addition, this one also cleared. This was a crash being reported on northbound Tryon Street at Sugar Creek Road. Also, if you didn't have my last update before, this earlier crash at 4th Street at Kings Drive, that has cleared. The vehicles have cleared, but they have ongoing traffic signal repairs that will require intermittent lane closures through the morning hours. Right now, big picture, here's a look at that traffic map across the greater Charlotte area. It's busy out there, especially on 77. This is a live look outside, especially slow on those southbound lanes as drivers head inbound into Uptown. An updated look at those drive times right now. Matthews to Uptown will take about 23 minutes. Salisbury 51, Waxhaw 39, and Belmont 24 minutes. Back to you guys.
Becca, thanks. 8:08 right now on WCNC Plus. And we just got an update into the newsroom in the last 10 minutes on a deadly shooting that happened over the weekend in East Charlotte. Police have now identified the victim in that shooting. It was 47-year-old Shanika Gamble. The shooting happened Saturday night on Magnolia Drive over near Eastway Drive. Investigators encouraging anybody with information to call police.
Just hours ago, we learned the man accused of shooting 2 Democratic lawmakers and their spouses in Minnesota is now in custody.
NBC's Jay Gray has the latest from St. Paul this morning.
After more than 40 hours on the run, tactical teams close in, capturing Vance Belter overnight.
There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history.
Federal, state, and local agencies searching for the man they say murdered State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and in a separate attack, severely injuring State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Bullet holes from that shooting visible through their front door. The break in the case came Sunday afternoon. Officers locating an abandoned car Belter is suspected of using after the attacks in a rural area about 50 miles southwest of Minneapolis and just minutes from his home. Then, after a tip from a resident, honing in, tracking, and surrounding Belter.
The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time. There was no use of force by any member of law enforcement.
Agents say Belter was armed when he was taken into custody. A criminal complaint unsealed after his arrest shows police found at least 3 AK-47 rifles, a 9mm pistol, and a kill list in his car, a ballistic vest, mask, and police-style badge on the ground outside the vehicle. Evidence, and what police stress, is still an open and active investigation.
Now begins the hard work of looking at what the motive is, looking at putting this case together.
As the Twin Cities struggle with overwhelming loss. Jay Gray, NBC News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
This morning, authorities are reminding people to be safe on the water this summer as they investigate 2 drownings over the weekend. The first happened at Lake Norman. Just moments ago, we learned that crews responded Saturday night after a man jumped off a boat to get an item that had blown overboard. He never resurfaced. A woman jumped on board. A woman who was on board jumped in to help as that boat floated away. Now, crews were able to rescue the woman, but recovered the man's body on Sunday morning. Then in Kings Mountain, another person person drowned at Moss Lake. Investigators identified that victim as 46-year-old William Korn of Lattimore. That's just outside Shelby. That report came in just before 5 Saturday afternoon, and crews pulled his body from the water about an hour later. Kings Mountain police are still investigating what led up to his death. Now, in light of these drownings, we are sharing some reminders from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. First, don't swim in the water alone. Have a friend or a family member be a water watcher during your swim. Also, swim sober. Drinking alcohol impacts your balance, coordination, and judgment. And finally, if you get caught in a river current, swim across the current, not against it.
If you're headed up to Lake Norman this week, and maybe you are because it's going to be a hot one, listen up. There is no swimming for parts of the lake right now because there's an advisory after officials found toxic algae in one of the coves. It's near Torrance Chapel Road in Cornelius. While most algae blooms are not really harmful, some species like this one can produce toxins linked to severe illness. So if you do come into contact with the algae, thoroughly wash it off your skin and go see a doctor if you or a family member or a pet get sick. Neighbors in Morganton under a water advisory this morning due to a large water main break. It happened yesterday near Wilson Street and Laurel Hills Drive. While all water is being restored this morning, officials warned there might still be some discoloration or low pressure, so heads up. If you're still without water entirely, contact the Water Resources Department.
Tomorrow marks 10 years since the Charleston church shooting. On June 17, 2015, a white supremacist opened fire during Bible study at Mother Emanuel AME Church, killing 9 black worshipers.
Charlotte City Council member Malcolm Graham's sister was one of those victims. He shared his thoughts in our live impact news stream right here on WCNC+.
I kept busy doing the work, being an advocate for not only her, but for a race of people, right? Because Cynthia would have said, although I died that night and 9 others died with me, 8 others died with me, the attack really was against a race of people, not just me and Reverend Pinckney, Sharonda Singleton. It was anyone who happened to be there and who happened to be black. So it didn't matter who they were, what their backgrounds were. The only thing that mattered that night was that they were there and that they were black. Dr. King said that when he gave the eulogy at the 16th Avenue Baptist Church, where 4 little girls were killed in a bombing, he said, pay little attention to the killer and more attention to the system that produced the killer. And so I use all that time is to try to work in my city council work, or my past life as a state senator or congressional candidate, is to try to fix systems so that everyone can feel that they're playing and working from an equal perspective.
For more in-depth interviews like that, keep it right here on WCNC+. Happening today, Union County will hold its Board of County Commissioners meeting. They're scheduled to adopt the 2026 budget, as well as cover plans for juvenile crime prevention funding. That starts tonight at 6. And looking ahead to tomorrow, Gastonia city leaders set to vote on their budget. Officials plan to spend more than $300 million without raising property taxes. That will keep it steady at 47 cents per $100 of value, which is, by the way, the lowest it's been in 20 years. However, the budget does not include a 5% increase in water and sewer rates. That's about $4.28 more per month on average.
I want to go through our rain chances a little bit more in depth. We've been in a pretty active pattern that we've been dealing with a lot of systems, a lot more showers and thunderstorms, one that even brought some flash flooding as we were mentioning last week. Now, lower 70s, whenever we're in this range, that is some prime storm fuel, but you really need a front to drive everything up. And we have the perfect setup that we have flow out of the south and southwest that creates hot and hazy conditions, all because of this big old H that's spinning out in the Atlantic, creating more H's, such as hazy, hot, and humid weather. And this is also a likely setup as a front is going to drape across all this moisture that you could have some excessive rainfall. So we do have a flood watch until midnight for the mountains, so Watauga and Ashe County until midnight till 2 a.m. for the other counties outlined. That's Stanley over to Anson and Richmond County. There is a chance that the National Weather Service, the third office here that covers this area, Greenville, Spartanburg, could expand this. So I want everyone in our viewing area just to anticipate a chance for for a thunderstorm to be followed by another thunderstorm that could lead to some flash flooding, because we have two pieces on the board, a minor trough and then this area of a warm front. By the way, a trough, you're like, what the heck is that? Well, a trough is just an area of low pressure that'll drive up heat and humidity. So whenever you see that dashed line, it's a higher chance for storms. All right, now we know. As you work your way into the evening hours, that's where I think things become a little bit more widespread. This model actually shows a little less activity, but I want everyone to be on guard that, hey, you could have barely any rain at all to none, to some areas seeing up to 2 inches of rain. That's the typical summertime pattern that depends from county to county, even town to town, on what you're going to see. So our rain chance is one thing you need to know, that if you're going to see rain, it's most likely today and later on this evening. This is our highest potential. Everything's lining up, stacking up at this point. Still an isolated shower and storm pretty much each day on that extended forecast. The only day that I don't have something for right now, this could change by the time you're watching us tomorrow, is Sunday. Sunday looks to be dry. It's also the hottest day as well. Sometimes that can factor some things in. This is the only day that has at least a 40% coverage. That might even be more of a likelihood heading into the evening. Here's 1 o'clock. And then here is, here to advance for me, 5 o'clock. There's a big difference. At 1 o'clock, I think you might have 1, maybe 2 storms on the map, but then they really start to flourish once we hit that peak heating of the day. These are also slow movers. I'm going to step out of the way. Look at 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. At that point, I think we really have a cluster of storms close to that front, especially around the Albemarle area, and that does line up where we have that flash flood watch, where we have higher precipitation rates right through here. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have some flooding right along I-85 and areas south cutting through Charlotte. Just seems that showers are more numerous the further east that you go. Once the sun sets, the activity starts to wind down, and then close to midnight you could have 1 or 2 storms, but at least we're starting to erode a lot of that up. The other big story, of course, the heat. 3-day heat impact showing that we do have our highest threat really on your Wednesday and Thursday. Those are the only days that right now I'm forecasting maybe a peak heat index around 100 degrees. For the actual air temperature, 91 to 95. We do have a 90-degree point, so we cool down slightly on Friday, but realistically what you need to know, it feels like the mid to the upper 90s, close to 100 degrees most days this week. So welcome to summer, everybody. July, by the way, averages 90 to 91. This is pretty much what you'd see most days in July, as Becca knows very well. And Becca also knows what's going on traffic-wise, so what's going on?
Yeah, that's right. Looking actually pretty good, especially on 85. This is a live look outside from 85 at Glenwood Drive. You can see the camera has frozen here, but if you look on both those north and southbound lanes, not a whole lot of traffic. So really no issues, no big issues as you head outdoors this morning to hit the roadways, and no accidents or incidents to report on the major interstates or highways. Now, do still have a couple of problem spots, including this one. This is still that disabled vehicle that is impacting that center lane of westbound Charlottetown Avenue at Elizabeth Avenue. Currently 1 lane of traffic blocked off with that. In addition, still have this active crash right in the heart of Uptown. This is inbound southbound at 6th Street. You can see that truck has actually hit that building and 1 lane of traffic is blocked off. Also want to let you know of that construction happening over towards East Charlotte. This has northbound Sharon Amity Road closed between Central Ave and Laurel Lake Road. This is going to be a daily closure from 9 a.m. through 4 p.m. will last all the way through the end of June.
All right, check this out. The Uptown skyline looking a little different this morning after crews officially installed a new sign on top of the Wells Fargo building. Helicopters were used to lift the large letters to the top of the former Duke Energy building, which is also the 2nd tallest building in the Queen City. Each letter is about 14 feet tall and lights up. Wells Fargo says there will be several weeks of testing before that sign is officially turned on. Skyline's going to look different there.
I know. When they did it a few years ago for Truist, a lot of people are not pleased about it. We'll see what happens this time. Well, at a time where it's becoming increasingly difficult for college grads to land that first job, 2 Yale students are working to change the way young professionals network by using, yes, AI, a powered social network to create new connections all over text.
NBC's Maya Egeland is showing us how it works.
In this tiny room in Midtown Manhattan, it's all work and some play.
Watch it.
Nathaniel Johnson and Sean Hargrove are rising seniors at Yale University and co-founders of a new social networking platform called Series. You might be thinking, students at a prestigious college launching a social network. That sounds familiar.
That looks good. That looks really good. It's clean and simple. The site's live.
But the co-founders are quick to point out this is not like Facebook.
Series is an AI social network that uses AI friends to operate via iMessage to help you connect with the right people at the right time. And we essentially are building what we call the first AI social network.
In other words, instead of just putting up content and hoping someone takes notice, users are guaranteed a connection through an AI-powered assistant.
So it's kind of like an AI matchmaker for networking.
Almost. I mean, an even cooler way to look at it, right, is that's what we call it, AI friends. They seem to essentially function to help you meet the right people for your wants and needs, just like a friend would in real life.
Here's how it works. First, you give your potential AI friend some info about yourself and who you know.
And that's the key part, because without knowing who you know, we have no idea what your network brings to the table.
And after a quick survey, your profile is ready to go.
So we're looking at like kind of the temperament, career, academic goals, and then someone's kind of like willingness to help other people here.
Exactly.
After that, the matchmaking process takes place in iMessage, connecting you with professionals who may also be interested in your expertise.
And then how often is it going to be reaching out to you?
Well, that can be really based on however much matchmaking you need, right? Remember, it's not really about knowing who you want to meet or who you need to meet. It's the AI friend's job to find someone who's going to be a catalyst to whatever that is.
Connect you with a real person in real life.
Real person in real life.
Which is where the concept for their social network came about.
We're both a part of the Yale Entrepreneurial Society, and we ran a podcast called The Founder Series. This was interviewing Yale founders and CEOs, and we were able to talk to some of these guests, ask about how they kind of developed their businesses and essentially how they're able to attribute their success.
We knew that just talking to founders wasn't enough, right? Now that we have the secrets on what it takes to be a successful Yaley, why don't we give it a go?
2 years later, they have over 10,000 active student users and enough money to bring their vision to life.
We were able to raise $3.1 million for our pre-seed round for Series.
But beyond the money, the pair hopes their platform removes barriers and bias in the networking space for others.
There were times where doors were actually literally closed on us.
We haven't yet had someone have the right access to break that stereotype by leveling that playing field.
What I think we're proud of most is that we realized there was a need to allow that access to be equitable.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I am horrible about networking.
Really?
Oh, I am.
I mean, I love meeting people, I think, but this is so strategic. That's why I think it's such a, a good move for them, a neat idea to come up with.
Yeah, and as we've discussed, AI is helpful in so many ways, even ways you don't think it's going to be helpful, it ends up being helpful. So I could totally see how it would work.
And now there's an AI for everything.
AI for everything.
That is true. It used to be an app for everything. Now it's an AI.
Now it's AI.
But it's just, once you overcome that hurdle of leaning into AI, then I think you can really see the benefits. Because you're right. At first, I know I was kind of hesitant, like, I don't know about this, but you try it and you're like, okay, this.
To his point earlier, you learn to get better results by the prompts you give.
Yes.
And it's amazing what it can do.
And I think it's really the advantage to give yourself a step forward, because people that are utilizing it, you're pretty much cutting out the fluff of your everyday, like the mundane tasks that you would be doing. Have it summarized, how to do this, how to organize all that stuff, and then that can allow you to move forward in other different things.
And it saves you time.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
Work smarter, not harder.
And sometimes I write an email and I say, hey, can you write this better? And it writes it better.
I know.
Love it.
Thank you.
Sometimes I can, be too direct in an email and it softens it.
Imagine that.
Make it softer.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break as we take a live look right now over Uptown. Have another check of your Monday forecast and your Monday morning commute as well coming your way right here on WCNC+.
Welcome everybody to Monday. High temperature is close to 90 degrees, but it'll feel like the 90s, and that's the bottom line. Feeling like 91 degrees plus to about 97 from 11 a.m. until about 6 p.m. At that point, we're going to start to see some storms sneak in. The hottest feeling days of the week look to be this coming Wednesday and Thursday, but then on Sunday, we could challenge that mark once again. And our flood watch officially starts later on this afternoon, but then extends until midnight for the mountains, 2 a.m. for some of our eastern zones, but all of us will have a chance for a heavier rain, shower, and downpour, especially after 2 o'clock and really late afternoon heading into the evening. Our extended forecast, 7-day showing 91 on Tuesday. The hottest air temperature, 95 on Sunday. This is definitely a forecast that's a little bit more July-like compared to what we have at this point in June. So stay cool, everybody, especially with that triple-digit challenge of that heat index Wednesday heading into Thursday. Now let's see how our morning commute is faring on this very warm start with Becca.
Traffic starting to lighten up out there as we take a live look outside from the intersection of I-77 at I-85. Both busy interstates, but both those north and southbound lanes running smoothly on both 77 and 85. Do still have this active crash, probably the biggest problem spot, especially if you're headed over towards Uptown. This is on inbound Graham Street, right at 6th Street. You can see that truck has hit the building there, and lots of emergency vehicles currently on the scene. This is big picture, still a little bit red on 77 northbound from South Charlotte all the way to about Uptown. Also, do want to let you know this object in the road at Altondale Avenue at Providence Road. Drive safe.
Streaming live at 8:30 right here on WCNC Plus. I'm Ben Thompson.
And I'm Lisa Washington. We'll get to a check of your morning commute and your forecast in just a couple of minutes. But first, we start with some sad news out of Buncombe County this morning, where a volunteer firefighter was killed over the weekend. It happened Saturday during a training exercise in Montreat. A firefighter with the Riceville Volunteer Fire Department was killed in an ATV crash. 2 others were also hurt. It's not clear yet what caused that crash. Happening today, the murder trial for Emmanuel Bedford is set to get underway. He's accused of kidnapping and killing his ex-girlfriend, Deidre Reed, back in 2021. Investigators say she took him to the bus station and was never seen again. Bedford's trial was originally set to begin back in April, but it was delayed because not enough jurors showed up. He's pleaded not guilty.
Happening today, Union County leaders will discuss how to spend money aimed at keeping kids out of trouble and out of the criminal justice system. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards breaks down the plan. She's now live in Union County with more. Destiny.
Yeah, county commissioners today are voting on this plan, and it is really focused on early intervention. This is also a plan that's rooted in a lot of new local data and guided by Union County's Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Now, the council is requesting more than $476,000 in state funding to support local programs that serve at-risk and court-involved youth. A new risk assessment report included in the plan shows that more than half of these kids were classified as moderate or high risk for reoffending, and 71% had been suspended from school, a rate that's higher than the state average. The plan also calls out priority issues like weapon possession, early substance use, even before age 12, and gang involvement. The Juvenile Crime Prevention Council chair explained to us why this funding is so critical each year.
These programs give opportunity for our young people within Union County Public Schools to, number one, come in by making mistakes, but leaving by understanding that their mistakes did not define them.
The council wants to fund programs that can address these root causes, including DASH counseling, teen court, parenting support, and a workforce readiness program called Kids at Work. And Kirkpatrick says the county has a history of supporting these programs. So if it does pass, it will secure funding for the next fiscal year.
And Destiny, this plan mentions a local match. What does that mean for Union County?
Yeah, so they're not just really approving this $476 for state funding, but because of that amount, they also have to do a 30% local match in order to receive the funding. So 30% of that is just over $154,000. And so it's really a sum of $631,000, just over that amount for the programs in general. And this is really just something that is showing really that the county, Union County, has a personal local commitment to youth crime prevention, and it's also a little bit of a stronger financial foundation for these programs as well. So not just that $476,000, but a lot more going into these programs.
And showing the commitment from the local leaders there. All right, Destiny, thank you for that.
8:33 right now on WCNC Plus. Chris standing by with a look at your Monday forecast.
Thanks a lot, Ben, Lisa, and we are still looking at some fog up here in the mountains. Check out the base of Beech Mountain as those chairlifts are staying stationary, and also a decent amount of clouds. These a lot of those fair weather cumulus, stratocumulus clouds, and just some plain old stratus, those streaky guys that are covering our skies. But we are seeing some blue sky depending where you are, so it's mixed cloud and sunshine through most of the day. Here in Lylesville, this looks completely overcast, but you are seeing spurts of sunshine in between these guys. Our dogs of the day, by the way, today were Rose and Sonic. I do that 6:25 every morning over on WCNC. Oh, there we go. We're ramping things up with the music, and this is what it's like. This is what Dog of the Day is all like. Thanks a lot, Codemaster. We're looking at Rose and Sonic, brought to us by Debbie and Tristan. As you're walking the dogs through the rest of this morning, temperature's going to be in the lower to the mid 80s, approaching that 90-degree point with the real feel, the mid to the upper 90s, the middle of the afternoon. Not quite the dog days of summer. Thanks a lot. Good to have you, Rose and Sonic. All right, and music. I appreciate it, Cody, my director, for ramp things up. See, he has a different feel to the day, right? Yeah, this is actually, in all seriousness, going to be one of those days that we're starting to really test the pavements for our good old furry friends, because you're talking about those temperatures being 20 degrees plus warmer on concrete and some of the blacktop, and getting some sunshine and temperatures right around 90 degrees. Typical summertime stuff here. We have mid to the upper 80s to around 90 degrees for our highs, but it's all about how we feel, factoring in the moisture and the mugginess that we have in the air. Well, we're going to feel anywhere from 97 today. That looks to be the peak. Close to 100 on Tuesday. And then we think we have a peak heat index around 101 to 100 on Wednesday and Thursday before things start to come down a little bit heading into the weekend. And here is your weather source, how it's going to feel. Swampy, steamy, soupy, soggy, clammy, just to mention a few. If you don't want to say humid or muggy, because it's going to be become tiresome because this is only the beginning of summer. Actually, technically, it's not even summer on the calendar. That officially happens late on Friday, heading into Saturday. One thing that happens today, though, is we also see this in a summertime pattern, is the rain chances. We saw it last week. We saw it on and off through the weekend. Wasn't really too bad. Today's actually the best rain chance we've had since Thursday, where there's going to be some areas that I think could pick up 1 to even 2+ inches of rain. Very isolated flooding, but still going to be a possibility. There are multiple National Weather Service offices that cover our counties. We cover 22 of them that actually are across 4 different National Weather Service offices. That's why this map is so kind of incomplete. It's not really uniform, and I wouldn't be surprised if Greenville-Spartanburg, that covers most of our counties, could expand a few of these in here. So I just want everyone watching, if your county is here on the map, just to note that you have a chance for a flooding rain today, at least up to an inch. Some areas at the 2+ would potentially get a flash flood warning. And if you're notified on your phone, that means it's a considerable flash flood warning in some areas in Mecklenburg County. Saw that last Thursday. For our future cast, here's the timing. The magic hour is usually around 1 to 2 o'clock that we have our first signs of storms. Charlotte, I think especially it's after 4 that we have the best potential, but realistically, you can have an isolated storm anywhere in Mecklenburg County and surrounding areas between 2 and 4. 4 to 6 is where things, I think, become a little bit more scattered, and there's a chance that it could rain for a couple of hours. So I just want everyone to get whatever you need to do outside done earlier in the day, because your chances of storms becomes higher and higher, especially the further east you go as you are concluding the evening. And I think once you get to about midnight, we're storm free across the area. So for our extended forecast, you can see that those rain showers, here's a little bit deeper look into the evening hours, will start to erode by the time you get to about midnight hour. By tomorrow, we just have some isolated guys, and then by Wednesday, even less chance that we're going to have some of that activity coming up. I'm going to have that 7-day forecast. We're also going to explain a little bit more about those heat indices and how long we typically spend at each level, from 95, 100 to even up to 110 degrees each and every summer around the Charlotte area. But first, Becca, how's your morning commute looking so far?
Traffic really only continues to improve out there as we take a live view. This is over towards northern Mecklenburg County, I-77 at W.T. Harris Boulevard. And right now, still, we have not had any active crashes or incidents across the major interstates and highways. And that continues now. Do also want to start with some good news. We got a couple of incidents that have cleared, including this disabled vehicle. This was impacting Charlottetown Avenue at Elizabeth Avenue. Again, not something you'll have to worry about. In addition, was monitoring this truck that had actually crashed into this building at that intersection of Graham Street at 6, right in the heart of Uptown. That is also cleared as well. In addition, tracking a new incident now. This is a crash being reported at westbound Arrowwood Road at I-77 southbound. You can see currently blocking that right lane of traffic there, so do be aware of that as you head out there this morning. Right now, though, road conditions seeing more green than red. That's always a good sign for this time of day. Want to get to this, though, that's still causing some delays in the roadway. This is an object being reported in the road at Altondale Avenue at Providence Road. You can see that stretch of yellow indicating some minor delays associated with it. Back to you guys.
All right, Becca, thanks so much. 8:39 now. A former Charlotte Douglas Enterprise employee is facing charges this morning after he allegedly threatened co-workers with a gun. It happened just days after he was fired. 26-year-old Isaiah Williams allegedly flashed the gun and said he was, quote, ready for the supervisor who had fired him. Now, that supervisor wasn't there at the time and no one was hurt. Williams took off before police arrived, but officers later arrested him.
Uptown should be back to normal this morning after thousands packed the streets over the weekend for the No Kings protest. It was just one of several protests across our area and across the country. Many of the protests say their silence has caused too much for too long, and now they're calling for change, and not just in policy, but in leadership.
No one is saying that we shouldn't have strong borders and that we shouldn't get criminals out, but they're taking U.S. citizens. They're taking people legally allowed to be here.
The majority of people are not happy with the policies of the Trump administration and his push towards authoritarianism.
I think more and more people are going to continue to mobilize.
The protest came on the same day as President Trump's military parade in D.C. to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. Close to 7,000 men and women in uniform marched through the center of Washington as fighter jets and choppers flew overhead.
Right now, the Trump administration is pausing all immigration arrests at farms, restaurants, and hotels. The move comes after farmers and business owners expressed concern about losing workers. This comes after a big increase in immigration enforcement, with plans to make 3,000 arrests per day. President Trump is in Canada this morning as some world leaders are set to meet this week for the G7 summit.
The gathering puts the president in the international spotlight, but could be shadowed by political unrest at home and escalating tensions abroad. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
President Trump turning to the world stage today in Canada at the Group of Seven summit of top allies, amid mounting concerns over a new round of attacks between Israel and Iran. President Trump hoping for a deal to de-escalate.
Sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
While promising to keep supporting Israel's defense.
American pilots are shooting down drones that are headed towards Israel.
Iran has threatened to strike American military targets if the U.S. continues that assistance to Israel. Lawmakers sounding off.
The United States has troops, facilities, and civilians in the region. Do not attack them. That is our red line. If you go there, all bets are off.
Many defending Israel's goal of destroying Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon, while still calling to prioritize diplomacy.
Bring the two sides together, as well as protecting U.S. personnel.
U.S. embassy offices in Israel are closed today. That, as a U.S. official tells NBC News, President Trump rejected a recent proposal from Israel to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. The growing conflict expected to be a central topic among the G7 allies gathering in Canada, while here at home, boiling domestic divisions on display at weekend protests across the country against Trump administration policies, timed to counter the military parade in Washington, marking the Army's 250th anniversary that coincided with the president's 79th birthday. Tariffs and trade, another key focus at the G7 summit, with President Trump suggesting there could be announcements about a few new trade deals, while insisting world leaders should agree to conditions set by his administration. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
8:43 right now on WCNC Plus, and it was a really somber birthday celebration over the weekend for an Atlanta mother declared brain dead but still being kept alive on life support. Adriana Smith, now 31, has been on life support since February because she is pregnant. Smith's family were told by doctors that under Georgia's heartbeat law, they have to keep her alive on life support until she delivers that baby. However, her family believes decisions like that should be left up to them. Dozens showed up at a reproductive rights rally yesterday to speak out on Smith's behalf and pray for that family right now.
Second Harvest Food Bank is urging people to call Senators Tom Tillis and Ted Budd to stop possible cuts to SNAP.
That's the program that helps low-income families buy groceries. In an email to donors, the food bank says, quote, "The stakes are too high to stay silent. This is our moment to say North Carolina can do better." Reporter Joseph Leonard spoke to leaders who are worried about the potential impacts.
Nearly 1 in 5 people in Guilford County rely on SNAP benefits to put food on the table. That's according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank. But the One Big Beautiful bill could slash that support, cutting nearly $300 billion in federal funding, shifting that cost to the states, with no guarantee that places like North Carolina will come up with the extra money. But the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, says when the states pay more, they're more likely to crack down on fraud in the program. But Steve Key with the Helping Hands Food Pantry in High Point is worried families will go hungry.
And if you lose, $100 in benefits or whatever that amount might be, then that's going to impact them, and they're not going to have that food that they've had in the past.
He says with inflation right now, his pantry has seen demand skyrocket, tripling in just 3 years. And Key says the families that come to him aren't scamming the system. They really need help.
It's not that they're not trying or not working or not trying to make the things work in their lives, but that it's just difficult for them to make everything meet.
Joseph Leonard with that report. The Senate is expected to debate that spending bill this week. Right now, it is expected to be a close vote. Even one senator could make a difference. Right now, the Monroe City Council is holding a special meeting to discuss House Bill 3. That measure would make the city's elections partisan races instead of nonpartisan. City Council members held a news conference on Friday saying they are being left out of this decision.
We're going to make those kinds of changes in elections. We have other municipalities that have nonpartisan elections. So if the goal is to get everyone to a partisan election, then do everyone at the same time, let everyone communicate about it and everyone learn about it. But let's not cherry pick municipalities. That's not okay.
That meeting is happening now. It started at 8 this morning. We will bring you updates as we learn more.
All right, check this out. The largest great white shark ever tagged in the North Atlantic was tracked off North Carolina's coast. Contender, a whopping 14-foot shark, nearly 1,700 pounds. He's a big boy. Last pinged near Cape Hatteras June 7th. Researchers say he's traveled nearly 1,900 miles since being tagged in January. Just hoping he's made his way up the eastern seaboard. We are expecting a sizzling start to summer with temperatures touching the 90s pretty much all week long.
Get ready for it because it's actually going to feel much hotter due to the heat index. Meteorologist Chris Mulcahy is going to break down some interesting stats for us. Chris?
And it's kind of crazy to think. And then when I was going through this data, I would have thought it would have been higher. But on a typical year, and this dates back to 1973, we only spent about 24 hours at 100 degrees plus how we feel throughout a typical Charlotte summer. Now, getting to 110, that's far less. It's 0.1. So it means most years we're not getting up to this level. And 105 is usually the heat advisory criteria. You usually see several heat advisories per season, per year. But it's only about 2 to 3 hours that we actually spend in this range. So yeah, we don't just talk about the amount of days that you spend at a certain temperature range. No, we can even dial it to the hours. We're so far in 2025, we've only spent 25 hours feeling like 90 degrees plus. For today, we're going to see it for a much longer. So there are your stats to know. We've spent 1 hour so far at 95. That is our highest heat index so far. Until today, my friends, I think that is broken. Check it out. Let's get to your forecast. You're at 97 for, I think, a peak today, 99 on Tuesday, 101 to 100. It's at that point you start to get that danger level. Not going to have a heat advisory until 105, as I mentioned, or as a hot weather advisory, as I think they're calling it now. National Weather Service completely really changed that up. And as you continue forward, just note that's how you're going to feel. And I actually want to show you one more graphic. It's this one. This is going to show you how hot you're going to be feeling throughout today. It's really about 11 a.m. until about 6 p.m. that you're going to feel like 90 degrees plus. So it looks like we're going to add at least another 7 to 8 hours in that temperature range, how we're going to be feeling. Okay, moving forward, check it out. These are our heat risk days. This is a product by the National Weather Service that whenever you're starting to turn red, that's where we're going to be near that 100 degree plus range. We don't see any extremes, so no pinks that are starting to pop up here, but it's really the middle of the week that I think is our most uncomfortable weather, sometimes our most unstable weather. We really need a front to drive into it to really make a big difference. But then once you get into the weekend, all right, Friday, only a yellow to a moderate, so that's great. Still about right around 90 degrees, but not as bad overall. So I'm just trying to find a little silver lining for you. The reason why we're so hot right now is a typical pattern that you usually see this around a year. We have a Bermuda high pressure system that's starting to roll past the area that just filters everything in from the south and the southeast. Okay, so I want to get right to our other threat. That's also going to be the potential flooding. We saw this last week, and I think it's a very similar setup, but it's a little bit further off towards the east this time. So we'll go through your thunderstorm fuel forecast. That it's right in here. Anyone in blue, you have a chance for a thunderstorm today, but it's really around 1 to 2 that we first see signs of storms, and then these really start to flourish as we work our way throughout the rest of the day. Here, this is my favorite model. We'll go through this a little bit slower. You can see, I think, our highest likelihood that you're seeing thunderstorms around the Charlotte area. First, it starts at 2 to 4, but it's really between about 4 to 7 that I think we see most of the activity. But it's the further east that you go that we're seeing really the most widespread. It's right in here that you're seeing one storm after another, where this is technically called training storms. And it's right in this zone that is under that flash flood watch, but not all of it. So I think everyone lives right along the I-77 corridor in areas east. You have the best chance for up to 1 to 2 inches of rain before this is all said and done. Now by tomorrow, same thing. Right around that 1 to 2 o'clock time, you have a few isolated storms to pick up, but notice how it's not as widespread. We don't have a front that's really aiding it. You can still see this on and off throughout the evening, and if we move even further into your Wednesday, well, we really have a whole lot of nothing. So it really looks like today is going to be by far your best chance for a shower and a storm. So our 7-day forecast, the extended forecast, 89 seems cool, right? Even though it's feeling like 97. 91 on Tuesday, and then we have 93 on Wednesday, and I was like, okay, that must be the top, right? We have 93 on Saturday and 95 on Sunday. This is a little shocking out of the system. Not that this is unusual. It's just that it took so long for us to get to that 90-degree point. Once we finally done it, now this is what you're pretty much going to say each and every day through July. We're just starting a little bit earlier, which, by the way, the summer solstice right here, starting officially late on Friday at 10:41. So that means this Saturday and Sunday, the first weekend of summer. What are you doing to celebrate? Hopefully staying cool. Maybe a nice glass of lemonade. Let's see what Becca's doing for the start of summer and also how our morning commute is looking.
I'm checking in on the morning commute is what I'm doing for summer, Chris. Checking in right now on Iredell County. This is I-77 over towards the River Highway Parkway. And you can see, of course, the camera is frozen on me, but traffic was moving along nicely there. Do want to get over to the mountains. We have this construction happening on Arnett Hollow Road, and this is going to close that road from Baird's Creek Road, and it's going to replace a large culvert that was damaged from Hurricane Helene. This is going to close 8 a.m. this morning and reopen by 5 this afternoon. Also, checking in on the Charlotte metro area, the red continues to die down across much of the area, so if you are headed out now, you're in good shape. Do have a couple of problem spots out there, including this one as we zoom in. This is the newest crash on the board being reported at the intersection of Tryon Street at West Boulevard. In addition, still have this active crash in South Charlotte. This is on westbound Arrowwood Road at I-77 southbound. You can see it is currently blocking one lane of traffic there. Drive times right now, Matthews to Uptown 26 minutes, Salisbury 49, Waxhaw 39, and Belmont 24.
Hi, this is Larry Sprinkle. Time for a Monday trivia. It's all about major highways, but one in particular that's a pretty long highway. Stretches all the way from Chattanooga to Charlotte out to Wilmington. We're talking about U.S. Highway 74, otherwise known as, to some people, to a few people maybe, as Andrew Jackson Highway. It stretches 515 miles from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Wilmington, North Carolina, also known as Andrew Jackson Highway, American Indian Highway, Independence Boulevard, and Wilkinson Boulevard. U.S. Highway 74, that's your Monday trivia. I'm Larry Sprinkle.
School is now out for summer, which means your kids are probably getting to bed much later than they would during the school year. Experts say keeping a consistent schedule, even while the kids are out of class, can be beneficial.
WCNC Charleston's Megan Bragg shows us the everyday impact it can have.
With school out for summer, kids may want to turn off their alarm, but pediatric sleep specialist Dr. Chafin Hart says keeping them on a regular schedule during the summer months can have long-term benefits.
Adolescents will sleep in by hours, and it can be important to let them sleep maybe a little more than you would during the school year, but good idea to, again, wake them up at a consistent wake time so that they have sort of some rhythm in their system.
She says the way to getting a good night's rest actually starts in the morning.
If kids can get exercise in the morning when it's cooler outside, that's ideal for multiple reasons. Partly because it's more comfortable to exercise, but also because then their body starts that countdown towards sleep because it realizes that they're awake and today is day.
She says no matter what time you make your summer schedule start and end at, consistency is key.
For circadian rhythm, I think parents keeping the same wake time every day is really important. It doesn't have to be the wake time they had during school. It can be a little later, but if it's consistent, it will help them regulate their circadian rhythm and keep them on some sort of schedule.
Some other key tips: avoid caffeine in the afternoon and screens 1 hour before bedtime. Megan Bragg, WCNC Charlotte.
We're about a weekend of summer almost for you all.
So here's the thing, I'm probably a little hypocritical because I don't keep this sleep schedule on the weekends.
It's impossible.
You can't wake up this early on the weekends, but I try to get them to bed at least at the same time. Try is the key word here.
We'll check back in like a month and see how it's going.
Things will be crazy. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but you make sure you keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Another check on the weather and traffic in just about 2 minutes. And then at the top of the hour, our own Jane Monreal is going to take over from our live Impact News studio right here on WCNC Plus. She's going to have all the breaking events as they happen across our area and across the nation. Just leave it on all day. There's lots that you can learn only on WCNC Plus.
Good day, everybody. We have some blue skies above some of these clouds, and now we are 1,500 feet up in the air through this camera. Just letting you know, a nice mix of cloud and sunshine will be upon us, but if it's a little bit cloudy right now where you are, it'll get better. 89 degrees is what we currently are looking at for a high temperature today, but you got to focus in how you're going to feel. Check out these red numbers. Feel more like 94 to 97 as we work our way through the middle of the afternoon, so our hottest feeling day, but that's nothing where we're going. Our flood watch also extends up until about midnight until 2 a.m. Even though not everyone's included, I think everyone still needs to anticipate some heavier rain at some point. Here's 1 to 2 o'clock. We're seeing some storms fire up off towards the west. Earliest storm I think Charlotte could see is between 2 and 4. 4 to 7 is the much better chance for storms to roll on through. After that, you're seeing those temperatures jump lower to the mid-90s most of the week. One quick look at traffic, because Becca says not much is going on.
Yeah, lots of improvement out there, especially as we take a look at I-77. This is normally jam-packed at this hour, so if you're headed out early on this morning, you'll be in good shape. Just so that it's running a little bit slow as you head to Uptown on 77 northbound.